Right. Today is Monday, August 11th, 2025. I am the interviewer, Amy Moritz, with Shay Danielewicz via Zoom. Sue is a 1992 graduate of St. Bonaventure University, having played 4 years for MJ Telford on the women's basketball team. A two-time co-captain, she was a member of the Atlantic 10 all-rookie team in the 1988-89 season after setting the program's single-season scoring record with 590 points. She earned all A10 honors her sophomore, junior, and senior seasons. Sue graduated with 13 school records, including setting the program mark for most points in a game, scoring 40 against St. Joseph's in 1989, a record that, as of this recording, still stands today. She was inducted into the St. Bonaventure Hall of Fame in 2002, named an Atlantic 10 legend in 2017, and had her number 42 jersey hung from the rafters of the Reilly Center in 2023. And I left out a whole lot there, but I could have just gone on. So, Sue, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Amy.
And so we will also like the your senior season was my freshman year at St. Bonaventure. So we have a personal relationship that goes back to 1991-92 as well. So uh
Absolutely.
but I want to take you back to before Bonaventure. Tell me about a time you first remember falling in love with sports.
Mm. Probably, I mean, I was very active when I was younger in elementary school. I was involved in softball and swimming, and I actually did gymnastics and tap and ballet, if you can believe that. But I really think that helped with my coordination a lot. And then in probably second grade, I started playing basketball and I just really enjoyed the piece of it of putting the work in and then seeing the results of getting better. And when I was younger, I was thinking about this the other day. I was really lucky. My school district at the elementary level, they didn't have a girls basketball and then a boys basketball for the rec league. We played all together. It was co-ed.
Okay.
So my dad would say all the time, he would say to me, Susie, I know that that really helped you early on with being aggressive and, just not backing down against other opponents. So early on, probably in elementary school, I really started to have a love of sports, and certainly basketball was at the top of the list. And just really started getting into going to camps with all my friends, and I enjoyed the whole process of getting better and putting the time in. I really That really was a big piece of it. I had such enjoyment of practice and doing additional training and to try to improve my game. But it was very early on that I can recall being very much involved in softball, basketball. Like I said, I was in swimming, diving, and then I also threw shot and discus in the middle school and high school. And actually, I was second in the state my senior year in shot put. And had some interest to continue to do that at the collegiate level. But I really enjoy sports, and just being a part of a team has always been something that has been something very special to me.
Okay, I want to put a pin and talk about shot put because I definitely want to talk about that in a second. But so first of all, remind me again. I know you're from where did you grow up again in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so I grew up in this small little town called Mount Gretna, Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
and my brother still lives there with his family. And I do think eventually we'll move back there. It's this quaint little town, maybe 800,000 people, just really beautiful area, small, everybody knows one another. It was the best place to grow up, right near Lebanon, Hershey, Pennsylvania. So that's where I grew up.
So it sounds like, I mean, it was co-ed, that first basketball like organized experience was co-ed, but it sounds like you had, as a girl growing up, had opportunities to play organized, a lot of organized sports.
We did actually. I went to Palmyra School District, right near Hershey, Pennsylvania, and we had some very good coaches at that time for both the boys and the girls programs. And they were very invested, and they understood that, to build a program, you needed to start at that elementary level and you needed to teach fundamentals, and these kids needed to learn the right way to play the game. And we would I can remember summers that I would stay over at my friend's house, and we would do weeks and weeks of camp that they would have these two coaches, Ron Berman and Bob Burris, and we were doing skills and drills, and then in the afternoon we would play games, and again it was co-ed. So very early on I knew that I had to be aggressive. I knew I had to put in the time and effort, but I was certainly afforded many opportunities early on. And, again, my parents were fantastic in transporting me here, there, everywhere. I think back to the mileage because where I went to Palmyra High School, I lived 20-25 minutes away. So, I was being, taken all over to different places by my parents before I could drive. But we certainly had two excellent coaches that understood what it took to build a program, and the timing was, very much right for me.
Uh-huh. So obviously we're going to talk mostly about basketball, but I do want to talk about shot put because I've interviewed two women who excelled at shot put from Western New York. So which is really interesting. So how did you, which I find interesting because I think it's a sport you don't grow up thinking about, right? It's not, you don't see
Right.
shot put on TV, you don't turn on TV and see people throwing the shot. So my first question is, how did you gravitate to some of the throws?
So it's so interesting. Again, in my, school district that I grew up in, again, another amazing coach that was at the middle school level. And it was just something you did. Oh, are you going out for track? So my best friend, she was a high jumper, she was a jumper. Obviously, I would not be a jumper or a runner, but I knew, had started weight training, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I could learn to throw shot. Again, so I had another excellent coach that really taught me technique. And then when put the technique with the weight training, some really great things can happen. So I was just around it. I was submerged in it, which I never took for granted. But I just jumped on that opportunity early on, and then continued through high school and through shot and discus. I loved it because we always would have this in the spring, and basketball would go. We would go into states, so I would always be coming late into the throw with the throwers, and it was like the running joke, but they understood, which was another nice thing that the coaches, okay, Susie's still in the basketball season, we understand she'll come to throw when she is completed with that season. But I really enjoyed it, the whole atmosphere, and that it's more individualized, but again, the day-to-day grind, you're working with your other throwers, and I again liked that aspect of it.
Mhm. Did you, throwing is a sport that prioritizes power, and you had mentioned you got into weight training. How I'm just wondering how that may have helped you, not just physically, but also help you mentally, going back to what your dad said about being learning to be aggressive in second grade co-ed basketball. I'm wondering if that really helped your development, mentally too, as an athlete or as even just as a woman going into the world.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And again, my district had opportunities. We had weightlifting that was offered to us. And, I was surrounded by a group of friends that we were not afraid to go in there if, the guys were lifting, and we had our own training program. So, and I really bought into that with weight training. That's something I still do, Amy. And, even, throughout high school and college, that really was a critical piece to, I think, also maintaining my health, because I did not have, knock on wood, injuries throughout my collegiate career, and I was very blessed
Mhm,
with that. But I also think I was strong, like you said, and that not only impacts you physically, but mentally as well.
mhm. So tell me about your recruiting process.
Okay, so yeah, gosh, I'm thinking back to this. I started in high school going to some like Kathy Rush All-Star Camp, Blue Star Camp in New Jersey, different camps, and I was starting to get invited to these camps because my freshman year, I they brought me up to the high school team, and we went to the state championship game, and we actually lost. I was the sixth man on the team, but so I started to get some people that started to look at me at that time, and then my sophomore and junior year, certainly more looks. And I knew I wanted to actually, I wanted to try to verbally commit prior to my senior year, if at all possible, if it was the good, the right fit. Um, I did want to try to do that. And the whole recruiting process, there's a lot of people that are talking to you, a lot of people saying things, trying to say the right things. I again was very blessed to have two parents that instilled a lot of, core values in me. And I think I was okay with get going through all of it at that time. I don't know how some of the kids do it now with, all of the social media. It's just a different beast right now. Um, but it basically came down to Fairleigh Dickinson, Syracuse, St. Bonaventure, New Mexico State, if you can believe that. I know, it was kind of just out there. I know. So those were really the four schools that, after, letters and conversations, and, they I remember George Washington, the coach, called me and said, we're no longer recruiting you, but we're going after your friend who's on your AAU team. So it could get a little brutal like that. And, I'm sensitive. And I remember coming off that conversation just, heartbroken that they didn't want me. But again, Amy, I was, well, they said I was 5'10", and I played, the four position, and, I wasn't the fastest, and I couldn't jump the highest, but, Bonaventure saw, I think a young lady that, had tremendous work ethic, and understood what her strengths were, and understood what her weaknesses were, and tried to play to my strengths and not exploit my weaknesses. I tried to, um, Yeah, but going back to the recruiting process, I remember, Randy Stebbins coming in my house. God bless him. My parents were all sitting down and, Stebby's talking to us about Bonas and he'd like us to come for a visit. And, he was just so wonderful talking to him and I just real personable. We really made a connection. My parents really liked Randy a lot. Um, but I went to Fairleigh Dickinson first, and completely different place. Like, I mean, that I think I like the team, I like the coach, but I just think that was not the right place for me. And I think I knew it, just, the city. Um, and then my next visit was Syracuse. And, that I knew pretty, much on that, again, I liked it again, but then I went to Bonas and, I told MJ after the second day that I'd like to verbally commit, because I just fell in love with it. It felt like Mount Gretna. It felt like my home. It did. It really did. It
Mhm.
reminded me of home. The people were so friendly. The class sizes were so small. And I really felt the team was in a great place. The program was in a great place that I could help help MJ build something here and really, take it to the next level. And I knew that they were, obviously new to Division I in this unbelievable conference, one of the top conferences in the United States. So that really intrigued me to play against that elite competition night in and night out. That was something I wanted. So yeah, so the recruiting process, it was a lot. There was a lot of, letters, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversations like that, which is completely different from how it is now. Then at the end, you have to see who's there, who is still there wanting you, and who's going to be true to their word. So I just felt that Bonas they were genuine. It was a place that I could call home and hopefully make a difference there.
Kind of building off of that, Bonaventure, that place that felt like home for you. When you get then to the women's basketball team, and as a freshman, and then over your 4 years there, what was the culture like on that team or
Well,
those teams?
yeah, no, I mean, I remember coming in as a freshman and, after I had graduated high school and I made a commitment to myself that summer, that, they sent workouts and I said to myself, Susie, what you can control right now is you need to go in there the best shape of your life. So that's what I did. And I was just really strict about my diet and I followed their program with running, weight training, jumping rope. Oh my gosh, I can still see my dad timing me, also doing just individual workouts. No one was going to outwork me. That was something I could control. That was, something that I could control. So going in, you're moving into a new college and my roommate, she was not an athlete. She was this 4'10", Dina, her name was. She had no idea like what I was doing, where I was going. I'm like, oh, Dina, I have to go to, because it was preseason, I have to go to these workouts. She has no idea what I'm doing. So, but I also think all of those workouts, those things helped with my transition into college life. And I started to
Mhm.
find my people right away. One group of people, I should say, one group of people. And then, we started playing together. And this is before the season started. And at that time, Kristen DeLuca, we called her Bubba. Um, I always remember her. I'm still friends with Bubba now. She was so fast out there, and she said to me, "Oh, this freshman, she knows what she's doing." So I was like, I just always stayed quiet and let my game speak for myself. I was never one to start chirping with people or, trash talk back and forth. I really just let my game speak for myself. Lisa Marquis, Leslie McGee, Ronnie Hergenroder, Mary Biasotti at that time as well. Debbie Hughes, they were all people that, were there at the time. And they were welcoming, they really were. It's, it's unnerving though. It really is. If you're honest about it, you're the new kid. I had Shay Manley with me, and then Beth Gromowitz, but Beth wasn't playing because she had to sit out a year because she had transferred from Wake Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, so but I was excited. I tried to stay true to who I was, that I, enjoyed the process, Amy. I liked doing the workouts. I liked having our individual workout times with Stebby, all of this prior to the season, forming those relationships with the ladies on the team and the coaches, I think was so important. And sometimes you're don't have to say a lot, but you can just let your actions speak.
Mhm. The way in which those upperclassmen were so welcoming to you, even as you're nervous, how is that something that is that a lesson you then carried forward then as you are then become an upperclassman, a junior and a senior, and are setting that tone then for the freshmen coming in?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're going to, learn from your leaders, and yeah, absolutely. You want to welcome them, but they also have to learn some tough lessons. Not that you're, doing anything to them, but when they are struggling, you're there for them, and that's what you're doing, building that team culture. It's such a critical piece then later on to have success on the court. So yeah, absolutely. I think that I continued to do that, with my sophomore, junior, and senior year with all of the incoming freshmen. Yeah, and I really enjoyed all of the women that I played with. Very unique individuals, and I'm proud to say that I'm still in touch with many of them. So, yeah, very special.
That's great. A very general question for you, but what was it like to play for MJ Telford?
Wow, what was it like to play for MJ? I think she, she was motivating. She, and at the time, I didn't really understand everything that she was fighting for us behind the scenes. And I think she stayed quiet about that with us. That was not something that, she was like, oh, I'm trying to get us all these scholarships. But, I always saw such a tremendous sense of pride for the university. She would always tell us, you're a Lady Bonnie, 365 days a year, you know, uh, so you need to make sure when you have that uniform on, you're representing yourself, your school. That was really an important piece of being a Lady Bonnie, and that's important to me. That not everybody maybe bought into that, but that was really important to me. The wins and the losses, we certainly did a great job and made huge strides in the program over my 4 years. But I really, the integrity of the sport and the program and playing for a university, uh, that I'm getting emotional just because, uh, you know, seeing my number up in the rafters, that really was a powerful moment, because I really tried to play with, and I just try to lead my life with integrity, and being able to see my number up there, and it really was a powerful day and an incredible day.
That's yes. We might talk about that, some of your accolades a little bit later, as well. I want to go back. You had said that I think this happens a lot. A lot of the women that I talked with, they didn't know what was going on behind the scenes necessarily, right? Like that what their coaches were fighting for at the time. I'm wondering. So at the time, did it even enter into the team's mind, your mind, collective mind, to compare yourself to what the men's team was getting? Like, was there any of a sense of we should be getting a little bit more of that? Like, was there any of that?
Probably joking wise, like, you know what I mean? What do they have that? Those warm-ups or whatever, and
Yeah,
we're still wearing the same ones from the year before, just like jokes like that, but
right,
nothing, you know, uh, nothing that we were really, invested in like MJ.
right.
So again, as I reflect on that, Amy, what she did, I don't know many other coaches that were able to take a program from Division 3 to Division 2 to Division 1, and then, try to fight for, you know, everything that the men had as well. So I really have such respect for her in that right. Um, and, getting back to the coaches, I think, thinking back to Stebby, Randy was, he did such a great job of doing like individual workouts with us, really prepping each individual. Sandy really was quite excellent at the X's and O's, Sandy Gordon of the game, and also training us as well. But she was very well versed of that. So I think, the three of them working together was very, very good. Did they make the right decisions all the time? No. And that's coaching. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
coaching. My dad would, um, he would write me a letter every season, and I still have the letters. And he would just write down some like bullet points for me to remember, and just to stay humble, and be focused on what you can control, always be respectful. It wasn't about, Susie score 20 points, have 10 rebounds. It was about, uh, just, playing at a high level, but being intentional and having the respect for your coaches. And, that it was a tough job that MJ had. And then he would put at the bottom, if God is for you, no one can be against you. So, I again, Amy, was very blessed with two extraordinary parents that just got it. They really understood, um, what's important in life. That, this was just a piece of my whole chapter, of my life. Um, yeah, and unbelievably supportive and, loving in every sense of the way.
Mhm. That's like just so great. I love that story. Um, as you're talking about the Atlantic 10, and the Atlantic 10 at the time, right, of the comp. I
Yeah.
mean, we was Penn State in it when you were a freshman. By the time I had graduated,
Yes.
they had left. but
Yeah.
it's Penn State, Rutgers, George Washington, St.
Yep.
Joe. I mean, lots of really
Yep.
powerful
When
teams.
I when I, came in as a freshman, we had four teams that went to the NCAA tournament. West Virginia as well. I mean, my cousin, who is my age, Andy, he went to West Virginia, but he worked with the women's basketball team, Kitty Blakemore there. So he's very well versed in the whole league at that time. Just unbelievable talent, Amy. All Americans on every single team. So Susan Robinson from Penn State, Vicky Pikett from Rutgers, Sue Wicks from Rutgers, Dale Hodges from St. Joe's, Donna Abbott from West Virginia. So, and of those that I just named, four of them played my position. So that was what I was battling every night. Um, and it was amazing. It was unbelievable. I mean, just to play at that elite competition every single night. And, the women were taller, much taller than I was. Um, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Again, that was another reason Bonas was, chosen, because in the conference that they were in, it was incredible, one of the top conferences in the nation.
So, I mean, you get to play against some of these amazing programs and amazing women. I'm wondering from as St. Bonaventure, right? Little St. Bonaventure going against some of these figuratively and literally against some of these
Yeah.
schools. Um, how important then is that team culture and that buying into that team mentality in order to have any success against against these programs as you're building the Division I program era for Bonaventure?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's critical because, trying to get over that hump of losing again and again and again, and finding a way to win and beat these teams. And, coach working on, making sure we're feeling confident in what we're doing and that we can do this. Just because, we didn't win the past doesn't mean that's our future. I remember a really big turning point was, I think it was either my sophomore or junior year, and we played Rutgers and we lost to them at Bonaventure, but it was like by 3 or 4 points. And we're in the locker room, and all of a sudden we hear this, you are a really deep voice. You are not the worst team in the Atlantic 10 conference. I don't care what anyone says. Teresa Grentz from Rutgers came into our locker room, and then MJ was there. I mean, I think MJ was kind of like caught off guard too, but she just wanted us to hear that no, you're not the worst team in this league. You are doing great things. So that was a really powerful moment for us. And she was very complimentary of MJ and the things that we had done, even though we lost. So, that was huge. And I think, that little bit of, positive from this, well-respected coach, we were like, you know what, we can do this. We can start putting some wins, in the win column. So, yeah, that was a really cool moment. That was.
What an amazing moment. And
I
I can hear,
know.
I was not there, but I can hear her voice because she
Oh,
has that really,
yep.
um, somewhat frightening voice if especially you're not
Oh,
expecting it. You're like, what is happening? But yeah.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. No, and again, MJ is coaching against these well-respected powerhouse coaches, Renee Portland from, Penn State, Jim Foster. It's unbelievable. So I get again, give her credit to, stay the course, build a program, bring in the right people. Uh, was it perfect? No, but no program is. Yeah, that was a really incredible moment.
What a great moment. I'll take away from the A10 for a minute. I want to ask about the little three and playing, Canisius and Niagara, which obviously has a huge, deep history in men's basketball,
Yeah.
which is carried over. How important were those games? What was the little three like to you when you were playing?
Oh, have such fond memories, because, we could get some wins there, which was good prior to going into the conference play. And I think it held a lot of, it was really important to coach as well, because, obviously her being a player, as former player, just to continue that history, which is so important. It really is. So no, I think, and they've continued to improve their programs and build their programs. So just a lot of respect for each of those programs, and I enjoyed each of those games. I really did.
Mhm. I wonder what you remember about one particular game, which I mentioned when we started off, and MJ, remembers it, your 40-point game against St. Joe's. What do you remember about that?
Oh, we try to, my kids try to ask me about games, and, not that it's a blur, but like, it's just, I don't know,
Yeah.
my memory is not as strong as MJ's in that regard, but I just, it was just a game that, I really had some, great positioning as far as with my back to the basket. And, the guards were able to get me the ball. And I really was on that game with scoring. Yeah, that I know, and I think about that 40 points. Wow. And it was funny because I had a group of friends outside of basketball, one of them being, my husband, Ron, and all of our friends. And I remember then seeing them, and they're like, "Oh, Susie, you had 40 points." And and I was, just when you're in it, you're just, oh my, I don't know. I guess I should probably have taken more time to, like, oh wow, 40 points, but I was just trying to do my job and get us a win, and help us continue to build the program. But it was a really cool game. Things were just going very well that night. And, again, the guards were able to get me the ball, and I was able to get, good position on my girl. And, they a lot of times tried to double team, but it just worked out well that game.
And just, you were not a three-point shooter, so this is not for the
Right.
benefit of hitting from downtown.
I was definitely not a point shooter.
What and there were many of the women that I interview, the players are like, I don't remember specific games. Like the games like really to them are a blur. What are some of your favorite memories though
Mm.
of your time playing?
I, winning the Lady Bonnie Classic, anytime we did that was just, that really made my heart happy. Beating St. Joe's definitely. Just my senior year, having the most wins at that time in the program. So those are things that I cherish. I also cherish just the things that happen that are not, maybe not even on the court, but like, in the weight room, or getting taped up, or, those. that are more relationship, with my teammates.
Mhm.
Randy Stebbins would give us a pound of candy if we would take a charge. So, you know, things like that. Like Jody and I were talking about that the other day. Like, oh my gosh, So we all wanted to take a charge because we wanted a pound of candy,
How
So
did that pound? It's a good incentive.
right, exactly. So, just the camaraderie, the freshmen that were also when I was a senior that came in, they were a special group with Joy and Melissa and Christine and Susie. So I really felt blessed, my last year to have some fantastic additions to our team that I knew going out that, Jody was going to be in great hands, with these younger ladies. So those are the moments that I really, I know it sounds foolish, but I treasure and cherish the relationships,
Mhm.
when coach was saying this to me when my number got in the rafters. Leslie McGee hadn't been back to campus since she graduated, but she came back for that. So, and we had a huge group. And that's what it's all about to me. It really is.
Uh-huh. You you've got a number of honors, right, from St. Bonaventure, the Hall of Fame, the Atlantic 10 recognition, and the jersey and the rafters. Um, what does that mean for you? I mean, you left with these records, but if that wasn't something you barely remember that there was. Yeah, I scored 40 in a game once, right? You barely remember that type of stuff. So when you end up with these sort of accolades, how what does that mean to you?
It's after the 42 was in the rafters, I tried to articulate my thoughts and express my gratitude. It's part of the journey, and I feel like that piece of my life, those 4 years, were well lived, and that makes me happy. I met my husband. I've made, incredible friends that I've, still in touch with. And basketball was a huge piece of that. And I think, the way I played, I represented myself and our university very well. Um, so that those things are more important to me than certainly, scoring all the points and the rebounds, and us, me leaving my senior year with the most wins that we had ever gotten in our program's history. That was really important to me. Helping being part of building a program. Um, yeah, Hall of Fame. Oh, I'm incredibly grateful and honored, and certainly, for the legends in the Atlantic 10. I mean, a tremendous conference. I'm again humbled to be honored with all of those other women. So I'm grateful. I'm incredibly humbled and honored. And then, when they put the 42 number up there, that was a really special moment. So it's so funny, Amy, because like when we had that, weekend of celebration and, with Katie and Woj did the commentary of our videos and everything. And like my kids are like watching this and they're like, who is that? Like, yeah, literally, like it's because it's not something that I mean they know. I mean, my husband and I talk about Bonas all the time, and one of them almost went to Bonas, but
Mhm.
we are diehard Bonas fans. But my career is not something that I talk about all the time. So like,
Mhm.
my son and daughter, Evan and Riley, were just like, Mom, you actually were good. So it's just funny, it's again part of the journey. I'm really proud of that piece of my life. But I certainly am more proud of being a good wife and a good mother to two fantastic kids.
You mentioned, you're part of building, you wanted to be part of building that program. That's what one of the things you're most proud of is being part of that, and that wins that senior season. So when you see the success that the program had later on with the WNITs, with the NCAA tournament, how does that make you feel? And how do you feel that maybe your group, your cohort over that time, maybe helped lay some of that foundation for that later on?
Oh, I mean, I was so incredibly happy. I mean, I was just so proud of the program and, what Jim, will continue to do. And I'm so happy he's back. I really am. Coach Crowley, he gets it at Bonaventure. And so, when they made that run, and it was just so awesome to see the pride back, and what it is to be a Bonnie and wearing that uniform, and what we represent. And I had conversations with Coach Crowley about that, and a couple times I'd spoken to the team, and just so you're a piece of that history, and it's important for them to understand what came before them. Like me, I before me was Missy Ward, and how the Chris Agresta and all of them that took it from Division 3 to Division 2 to Division 1, and that respect has to be there. Randy Stebbins would talk to us about that all the time. And, he would tell us about Missy Ward and how she played and how she represented the university. So, I was delighted, just elated to see that. So happy for the program. And, everyone I'm talking to, Jody and Leslie and Kristen, and, everybody is so excited as well. So, yeah, and we're again delighted that Coach Crowley is back and, rebuilding the program again. Hopefully, to a respectable program. And when I know he will, it just takes time.
And last question for you. So, what does Title IX mean to you?
Mhm. Wow, Title IX, some equality. Um, yeah, I think in my head, people that have fought for that, and just having, things that are equal for, men and women. And, they're still fighting that now, in sports. But yeah, I mean, and again, I had a coach that was a huge integral part of that, and trying to fight for things so we would have the same as the men's team, or same number of scholarships. So yeah, that was a big part of that at that time, and still is today. But again, just equality. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
So, thank you for going down memory lane with me today.
Well, this was wonderful, Amy. Thank you so much.